The con man, Tony Khan, has revealed what he thinks is the greatest thing that he has ever done in AEW, and much to the displeasure of Dave Meltzer, it's got nothing to do with Kenny Omega, nothing to do with the Young Bucks, and nothing to do with all those overhyped, overpaid, new Jobber Japan Pro Wrestlers. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Wrestling. Tony Khan isn't doing anything great right now. AEW is a sinking ship. It's getting worse and worse. The ratings are going down. But recently, during an interview with Bleacher Report, Tony Khan revealed what he thinks is the greatest thing that he has ever done in the 5 years that All Elite Wrestling has been around. And he gave that number one spot to Sting. He said Sting's retirement is the greatest thing that he has ever done in AEW, but he took a couple of digs at WWE while doing so, and it just feels like Tony Khan is under pressure right now. He knows that AEW is a disaster, so he's trying to be positive. He's trying to talk about great things that he's done in this company while also taking digs at WWE. But if I was him, I would be more focused on all the bad things that are going on right now. But that's what Tony Khan said to Bleacher Report. We'll talk about what he said, then I'll give my opinion, because I personally don't think Sting's retirement run in AEW was good. I think it was okay, but to say it was the greatest thing ever done in AEW, that's a step too far for me. But that's what Tony Khan had to say. He says, quote, "The greatest thing we've ever done in AEW, in my opinion, is the retirement of Sting and the way we handled Sting's final years as a pro wrestler. He had one of the greatest careers ever in wrestling, and when he arrived in AEW, he did not feel that his prior run had been what he was looking for. When he had previously competed in WWE, I don't think he had a great experience with WWE. He was looking to do something very different. When I first talked to Sting, he was interested in having a comeback, but I don't think Steve Borden ever imagined it would lead to a 3-year run in wrestling that would become legendary." End of quote. Now, he does go on and say a little bit more, but we'll stop it right here. We'll react to that right now. I mean, to call Sting's run in AEW legendary is a disgrace. People are saying it's the best run that Sting ever had. It might be better than his WWE run, even though he had a good match at WrestleMania, that match with Triple H with the NWO DX getting involved. That's a pretty memorable moment. But even if you say that his AEW run was better than his WWE run, it wasn't better than his TNA run, and it sure as hell wasn't better than what Sting did in WCW. And it's Tony Khan as well, just talking about WWE, saying that he didn't have a good experience in WWE, trying to put him over as great, put AEW over as great, and put WWE over as bad. And it's like, get over it. There's a lot of people in AEW right now that didn't have great WWE careers, but they're having even worse AEW careers. And I don't see people from WWE coming out and throwing AEW under the bus for that. But whatever. Tony Khan also went on to say, quote, "It is an immortal series of matches. Sting was undefeated in his arrival, teaming with Darby Allin in every match. The two of them came together to be the most successful team in the history of AEW. They had some of our best matches ever, some of our biggest moments, and it built to them becoming the AEW World Tag Team Champions. Sting's final match, Sting and Darby versus the Young Bucks at AEW Revolution, was, in my opinion, the greatest send-off ever in pro wrestling. And Sting deserves that because he's one of the greatest wrestlers ever. And we were very lucky to have him in AEW." End of quote. Alright, Tony Khan, who are you trying to kid? The Khan man, the con man, Tony Khan, claiming that it was the best send-off ever in pro wrestling. Are you shitting me? The best send-off ever? How does it compare to the send-off that Ric Flair got? It just doesn't. Sting had a match against two guys that do not deserve to be in the ring with Sting. Let's face it, 3 guys in fact. Darby Allin shouldn't have been there either. Now, the entrance was pretty cool, where they had people come out dressed as Sting, different versions of Sting, younger versions of Sting. The entrance was okay, But the match itself, the moment itself, the send off itself, even during Sting's like retirement speech in the ring, they cut off. I mean, they cut the feed. You had to go on to like the post match shit to get it. I mean, Sting was in the middle of doing a retirement speech and they ended the pay per view. I mean, what a disaster that was. To say this is like the greatest send off ever in pro wrestling. Think of the amount of send offs ever in pro wrestling, and this guy is claiming that Sting had the greatest. Then he talks about how Sting and Darby like were the greatest tag team of all time, and how Sting's run was legendary and immortal. For me, it wasn't, because you're taking Sting, a legit legend, and you're teaming him up with a stuntman, an indie man, in Darby Allin. It just doesn't make sense. Sting is a legend, Darby Allin is not. You team Sting up with Darby Allin, and you're immediately, you're watering down Sting. Think of The Undertaker. Undertaker's legendary. Could you imagine the last 3 years of The Undertaker's career? He was teaming up with like a Ricochet or a Dragon Lee, and he was just having tag team matches with Ricochet or Dragon Lee for the final 3 years, and instead of Undertaker going out on a one-on-one match, instead of Undertaker wrestling at Mania, Undertaker's final match is a tag team match, teaming up with like Ricochet to take on the New Day. Could you imagine how shit that would be? The legacy of Taker surrounded by guys that are just nowhere near his level. So yeah, that's how I felt with Sting. I know a lot of people will claim, well, Sting was older, he couldn't work. I mean, bullshit. The guy, anytime I seen the guy, he could still go. He doesn't have to have a 20-minute match, a 25-minute match, a 30-minute match. That's why they teamed him up with Darby Allin, so that they could have these long matches. Fuck that. Sting could have easily had a 6, 7, 8-minute match, and that's all he needed. He didn't need this big, long-ass, overbooked match, but that's what Tony Khan done, because that's what AEW do. So, yeah, for me, it wasn't legendary. It wasn't fantastic. It certainly wasn't the greatest send-off ever in pro wrestling. I think Sting's run in AEW, I think it was okay for what it was, especially when you consider he was stuck with Darby Allin constantly. It was okay, but it was not great. Let's not pretend it was the best thing ever. And I just think Sting would have been better off having a match on his own. I mean, you could have had Sting versus anybody. Not exactly sure who, but you could have done something more memorable. Yeah, they had Ric Flair involved. I mean, you could have had Ric Flair in the corner of Sting, or Sting taking on, since Ric Flair was kind of the guy that Sting says put him over, you could have got Ric Flair taking on Sting, but as a manager, and Ric Flair could have been in the corner of somebody. It could have been Ric Flair's chosen opponent to face Sting, and that could have been the retirement match. But no, they did a tag team match where Sting nearly died, Darby Allin nearly died, car crash, fucking wrestling, and Tony Khan thinks that's the greatest thing ever, pretty lame. When it comes to Sting's career, when you look at his AEW career and his WWE career, the one thing that you will remember from both is his WrestleMania 31 match against Triple H. That's the most memorable thing that Sting's done. It's not the car crash tag team match against the Young Bucks. That is for sure. But anyway, let us know, guys, what you think down below. I'm not bashing Sting's run in AEW, because I did think it was okay. I just don't think it was spectacular as Tony Khan is trying to pretend that it was. But the guy's under a lot of pressure. He's losing big time. AEW's in the mud. He needs some wins, even if he has to lie to create them. So good luck, Tony Khan, but it definitely wasn't the best send-off ever in pro wrestling. That is for sure. Till next time, peace.